Today, more cases of coronavirus diagnosed across Australia as authorities call for calm.
The coronavirus is, for all intents and purposes, a mild virus for the majority of the population.
Italy's death toll jumps to almost 200 as major events across the globe are cancelled, including one of the world's biggest music festivals. Also ahead, hot air balloons graze Canberra skies for the annual Balloon Spectacular.
And Van Egmond all the way through. Lagazzo makes it two.
And the Matildas cruise to a 5-0 win against Vietnam, putting them on the cusp of Olympic qualification. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Miriam Corowa. Let's check the weather around the capital cities for today. Possible showers for Brisbane, Sydney and Canberra. Increasing sunshine for Melbourne. Showers expected for Hobart. Mostly sunny in Adelaide. Scattered cloud over Perth and a possible thunderstorm for Darwin. More than 70 people in Victoria, including 2 nursing home residents, are being put into isolation after a Melbourne doctor became the latest Australian to test positive to coronavirus. The doctor, aged in his 70s from the suburb of Toorak, became unwell on a flight in the United States. The number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Australia has now surpassed 60, with 28 cases in New South Wales alone. Reporter Lily Mayers has more from Ryde Hospital in Sydney, where a number of cases have been recorded.
New South Wales has now recorded 28 cases of the coronavirus, including the first student case that we've seen here. The Year 11 student from Epping Boys High School contracted the virus through his mother, who works here at Ryde Hospital as a health worker. The 16-year-old was taken to Westmead Children's Hospital yesterday. He remains there in a stable condition. His mother hasn't contracted the virus. She's undergone testing but is currently well. Several other family members of his have also undergone testing and they're expecting their test results to be given to them today. As an extra precaution to try and contain the spread of the virus, the Epping Boys High School was shut yesterday. Now authorities are contacting anyone who was in close proximity to the student and they will be placed in quarantine for 14 days. There were 3 more cases recorded yesterday afternoon. An 18-year-old woman linked to a case in Western Sydney and 2 more workers from the Baptist Aged Care Centre in Macquarie Park. The Chief Health Officer says there's now 4 residents and 3 staff members who have contracted the virus from that aged care facility. So there's daily swab tests that are happening and those residents are being placed in isolation as a precaution. On Tuesday, a 95-year-old resident from that facility died after contracting the virus, so the Health Department has taken extra precautions to keep the residents and the staff members at that facility safe.
Concerns are growing for our health workers who are bearing the brunt of the coronavirus epidemic. The Australian Medical Association on Friday said doctors need the equipment to provide healthcare via video call to avoid coming into contact with a patient with the virus. Tony Bartoni, president of the AMA, says the medical system, if properly resourced, can easily handle the outbreak.
Before the announcement of the issue of coronavirus, it's true that our hospitals were at their capacity. They were at under significant stress through many, many years of growing population, growing complexity of disease and an ageing population. To boot, those 3 things were putting pressure on our system, notwithstanding record funding, as you'll be told by the governments in the various territories and states. However, in a pandemic, when and if that does arise, that basically will put an enormous load on any healthcare system. You can't have that enormous redundancy in the system to cope with that overnight. So you need to put into place a preparatory set of steps and processes to allow for the escalation. Now, part of the response here is obviously going to be that primary care in a situation where, if I can just step back one step at a moment, the coronavirus is for all intents and purposes, a mild virus for the majority of the population. So the 80 or 90% of people who will get infected will really not have significant symptoms other than a usual cold or bad, maybe a bad cough or some maybe even a fever. But they don't need to be when it goes into the if it does progress to a particularly widespread community forum. GPs and frontline clinics will be able to deal and manage patients either in their clinics or even now remotely by using telehealth consultation items, which is part of the planning as late as yesterday to address and keep patients who are infected but otherwise relatively symptom-free or mild symptoms at home, out of the community, out of the workforce and out of obviously doctors' waiting rooms and hospital emergency facilities. So the majority of that bulk will be dealt with outside of the hospitals. Okay. Yes, the sickest and those with chronic and complex disease will need to be managed in hospitals, and that's about preparing both in terms of managing elective surgery, in terms of ramping up surge capacity of workforce, because it is going to put pressure on the workforce. So there are many parts to that question, and it is a moving day-by-day picture. And part of that preparedness is to delay the impact of any escalation for as long as possible. That's why we've been in an isolation and containment phase, to give us the time, to give us the ability to really prepare.
Victoria's Health Minister insists there's no reason people should be panic buying in response to the coronavirus. Shelves in supermarkets have been stripped bare as people rush to buy essentials such as toilet paper and pasta. Police were even forced to intervene after a man got into an argument over toilet paper with another customer in a Big W store in New South Wales.
There is no reason for people to be panic buying. We want people to be prepared if they need to self-isolate or they are sick, to be able to stay home for that period of time. But, you know, you do not need to have months' worth of food or toilet paper in your home. If we look to what's happened with the flu pandemic, and we had the worst ever flu season last year, that ran for about 9 months. So, you know, I don't envisage most people are planning to stay home for 9 months to ride this through. So there's no reason to have months' worth of supplies at home. It makes no sense whatsoever. Have enough of what you need if you need to self-isolate for 14 days. That does not mean, you know, filling up your home and your garage with toilet rolls.
The number of COVID-19 cases around the world now exceeds 100,000. More than 3,000 people have died in mainland China, and the death toll in Italy has risen to 197 after the largest daily increase in fatalities there since the outbreak began. There are 85 countries outside of China reporting infections, and more than half of those who have contracted the virus have reportedly recovered, including more than 53,000 people in mainland China.
Every day we can slow the epidemic. The epidemic is another day hospitals can prepare themselves for cases. Every day we slow down the epidemic is another day governments can prepare their health workers to detect, test, treat and care for patients. Every day we slow down the epidemic is another day closer to having vaccines and therapeutics, which can in turn prevent infections and save lives.
The United States has now recorded some 200 cases and 15 deaths as the global struggle to contain the virus continues. A cruise ship carrying 3,500 people, including at least 4 Australians, is waiting off the coast of California, while dozens of passengers are screened for the coronavirus. US Vice President Mike Pence provided an update a short time ago.
Among those tested, 46 persons were swabbed, 21 of those on the ship tested positive for the coronavirus. 24 tested negative. 1 test was inconclusive. Again, let me say, 21 individuals on the Grand Princess tested positive. Among those were 19 crew members and 2 passengers.
One of America's most famous music festivals, South by Southwest, has been cancelled due to coronavirus fears. Organisers of the annual event, which is held in Austin, Texas, said they had no choice but to call it off for the first time in its 34-year history. The move was ordered by Austin Mayor Steve Adler, who has declared a local disaster. Indonesia has recorded 2 new cases of the coronavirus, bringing the total there to 4 so far. As in Australia, Indonesians have begun panic buying. In addition to face masks and sanitizer, they're also desperate for herbal remedies that promise to boost the immune system and aid the fight against the virus.
Fear of coronavirus is having a huge impact on demand for some medicinal plants and herbs in Indonesia. Ginger, turmeric, lemongrass and galangal are all in huge demand because many people believe they are magic ingredients that will give them the ability to fight infection if they do catch the virus. Aromatic ginger has almost doubled in the last few days. Turmeric has tripled in some markets in Java. There are stores that are seeing also a rush of customers wanting empon. These are drinks with medicinal properties, including those ingredients, again, to help people fight the infection if they are unlucky enough to catch coronavirus. And a lot of this demand has been fueled by a university study that suggested that these ingredients, these plants, have almost magical properties and help the lungs to avoid inflammation in the case of infection.
The most important thing in handling the virus is that you increase your stamina. What you can do to fight off this virus is by using herbal plants in your surroundings, and we drink and consume it. The kinds containing curcumin like ginger, curcuma, turmeric and lemongrass.
The rise in panic in Jakarta comes after President Joko Widodo on Monday confirmed the first 2 cases of coronavirus in the country. Another 2 people tested positive last night. There's also been a rush on facial masks, medical masks and hand sanitizer in recent weeks that have either sold out or are selling at inflated prices. In Jakarta, police have conducted raids in recent days on warehouses and factories that have been making and selling face masks illegally. Several people have been arrested, and anyone found hoarding masks or selling them at ridiculous prices faces up to 5 years in jail.
In Afghanistan, at least 32 people have been killed after a gunman opened fire at a remembrance ceremony in the capital, Kabul. The ceremony was attended by a number of the nation's top political leaders, including Abdullah, a leading contender in last year's presidential election. The Taliban, which signed an historic peace deal with the US last week, has denied involvement in the attack. The Islamic State group instead has claimed responsibility. A ceasefire has come into effect in Syria's Idlib province after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin met in Moscow. The pair hope the deal will serve as a basis for ending fighting in the de-escalation zone and contain a growing humanitarian crisis.
A ceasefire to contain a conflict which has displaced nearly 1 million people in 3 months.
The ceasefire deal will be effective starting at midnight. Our goal is to prevent the worsening of the humanitarian crisis in the region. We will work together to supply aid for all the Syrians in need, without any precondition and discrimination.
Turkey and Russia agreed to the deal after their 2 leaders had a 6-hour meeting in Moscow. The latest offensive in Idlib by President Bashar al-Assad's forces, backed by Russian airstrikes, has sparked what the UN says may be the worst humanitarian crisis yet, in a war that's driven millions from their homes and killed hundreds of thousands.
We are all supportive of the ceasefire and we hope to see Syria become free of terrorism. All the Syrian people support the ceasefire and ending the bloodshed.
Turkey and Russia also agreed to establish a secure corridor along a key east-west highway, as well as hold joint patrols on it as of the 15th of March.
We do not always agree with our Turkish partners in our view on the events in Syria, but each time in a critical moment, relying on the high levels of bilateral ties we've reached, we've always managed to find common ground on disputed questions and find agreeable solutions.
Many hope these measures will be a step towards peace in the region, although Turkey says it will not remain silent if Syrian government forces continue attacks. Charlotte Batty, ABC News.
A suicide attack involving 2 people riding a motorcycle has killed a policeman and injured 5 others outside the American embassy in Tunis. It's the most serious attack in Tunisia in recent months. A burnt motorbike was seen by the embassy gate. Returning home, the New South Wales government is recruiting more mental health workers to help bushfire-ravaged communities recover. The 9 extra clinicians will bring the total number to 30. Bushfire Recovery Minister John Barilaro says the affected communities will need help for a long time to come. A far north Queensland school has incorporated a local Indigenous language into its curriculum in a bid to resurrect it and ensure it's preserved by the community forever. Mossman State School, north of Cairns, teaches Indigenous language classes to all of its students, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. There were fears the Gugulanji language, which is native to Indigenous people in the region, will be lost after decades of state government policies attempted to eradicate it. Sharon Case, languages teacher at Mossman State School, said implementing the plans involved working closely with the Gugulanji elders.
Our Indigenous people, of course, are experts in their story, very much so. So we went to them first, and there was mixed thoughts, actually. So some people were concerned that, was our school ready for that? Were worries about literacy and numeracy. Should that be the most important thing that we're focusing on? But then lots of other people were really supportive around it as well. And because our school had been on such a strong improvement agenda, our literacy and numeracy results were really good. So we're in the right position to go down this track. And, we felt that it was really important for our Indigenous kids to be able to close that gap that exists in Australian schools between our Indigenous and non-Indigenous kids in attendance and achievement, engagement. We thought that bringing in the language program would be something that would address that. It's actually been incredible to see what's happening in a really short time. The kids are speaking in the playground, little snippets. They're only doing the very basics at the moment, and then they'll walk downtown. They'll see an elder and they'll say Yalada in language to the elders and speak a little bit to the elders, which the elders are really chuffed about. Hearing the kids speak language again, because our elders tell us that for our Indigenous people to be whole, they need their language, their culture and their land, and colonisation's taken a lot of that away.
Hundreds of people gathered on the lawns of Old Parliament House this morning for the start of Canberra's annual balloon spectacular. Reporter Isaac Naruzi has more from the capital.
It was a bit touch and go there for a while. Anyone that's followed the news in Canberra lately knows that we've had bushfires, we've had flooding, we've had hail, we've had smoke, all within the space of a couple of weeks of each other. So flight directors here are kind of going, we don't know if this will go ahead. When it comes to hot air balloons, it's all very much dependent on the weather anyway, but it looks like all the stars have just aligned for them. Absolutely perfect temperature, perfect wind, so everyone is thrilled.
That's great.
It's the start of the balloon spectacular today, and normally you don't really see balloons go up on day one, but today we did. The Skyway was supposed to be tethered to the National Gallery just across the road last night. That didn't happen due to rain, and they decided to postpone that till Monday. It's due to fly on Monday, so we've missed it today. Depending on which side of the giant whale 10-breasted monstrosity versus wonderful piece of artwork side you sit on, it might not be the worst thing. They did get to see the 40-foot dinosaur instead, so that's nice. But yeah, the Sky Whale, it will be up on Monday if the weather permits, and it's a piece of Canberra history now, so it's probably a good chance to come down and see it on Canberra Day. As soon as something becomes famous in Canberra, it tends to just go off to another state, which is probably what's going to happen. It's going to start touring again afterwards. So if you're in Canberra and you haven't seen it yet, then look up on Wednesday or come down to the lawns of Old Parliament House.
In the UK, the Yorkshire Sculpture Park has some of the most important and impressive works in the world. And now they've been joined by a pair of Marilyn Monroe shoes and a wedding ring, as well as this giant multicolour cockerel.
A chicken in the countryside is not uncommon. But a massive cockerel covered in ceramic tiles, which emits a soundtrack, is more of a rarity. even for the award-winning Yorkshire Sculpture Park, where contemporary art vies with Mother Nature for your attention. The Portuguese sculptor Joana Vasconcelos has added some colour and a monumental mirrored mask. But this has taken on a contemporary resonance because, ironically, this is a Venetian mask, right?
Yes.
And the Venetians had these masks to stop them from getting the plague originally.
Exactly. So the mask is a device that it's used for many cultures all over the world for two things: to protect yourself from evil, and it can be from a virus like the coronavirus, or in Venice from the plague, but also it can be to protect yourself from yourself. And so you create an identity of yourself to communicate with the world.
Up on the hill is her 7-metre-high wedding ring made out of gold alloy car wheel rims, topped off with a stack of crystal whiskey glasses, framing the view over the valley towards Barnsley.
So to make a wedding ring is to talk about love, is to talk about commitment, is to talk about a relationship. You don't need a rock to do that.
So it is intentionally vulgar.
It is bling bling, vulgar, and it talks about, you know, how we end up here, consuming so much and putting all our expectations in objects and not in feelings.
She's an artist for our times, producing Instagram-friendly sculptures loaded with meaning, from a pair of stilettos made out of stainless steel saucepans to a stack of plastic cutlery arranged to look like a heart. She says she wants to create a space for discovery.
And Joanna is from the country of Portugal. And if you look at the sculpture, well, those tiny little dots, when it's night time, they all light up so that you can see the sculpture from miles and miles around.
She's right, you can.
Time now for sport with Jared Coote.
The Matildas are all but assured a place at the Olympics after they thrashed Vietnam 5-0 in the first leg of their playoff qualifier in Newcastle. The match was all but over by half-time as the Matildas took a 3-0 lead into the break. Sam Kerr scored the first goal of the match before Chloe Lagazzo and Emily Van Egmond added to the onslaught. Two further goals in the second half, including a double for Kerr, meant only a disastrous result in Vietnam on Wednesday will prevent Australia from qualifying for Rio. The Matildas have never conceded a goal against Vietnam in their previous 8 matches.
With the conditions, the fields, referees, travel, it's never easy, but that's why I said it's important that we go there and we look to score. We look to attack. If they have to alter their game plan, that's a big shift for them, and that's what we intend to do by keep on playing our style.
The Brisbane Roar have continued their strong back end to the season. Socceroos veteran Scott McDonald scored his first goal for the club as they cruised past the Western Sydney Wanderers 3-1 after scoring his first in the 3rd minute. McDonald then scored a second late in the first half to have the Roar well in front at the break. Mitchell Duke made things interesting with a brilliant solo effort early in the second half of the Wanderers, but a Jay O'Shea penalty confirmed the result for the Roar. The win moved Brisbane up into 5th position. Mitchell Starc has left Australia's one-day international squad in South Africa to return home. Starc was given permission to travel back to Australia to support his wife, Elisa Healy, when she takes to the field for Australia in the T20 World Cup final tomorrow at the MCG. Australia's men's side has 1 game left in the one-day series with the Proteas, but have already lost the series. The New South Wales Waratahs have had a night to forget. The Waratahs turned a half-time lead into a 51-14 loss to the Chiefs. Fresh off their first win of the season, the Waratahs were full of confidence, taking a 1-point lead into half-time. From there, the Tars conceded the next 38 points, registering their biggest loss to the Waikato side. Coach Rob Penny labelled the second half performance as unacceptable. Earlier, the Reds outscored the defending champion Crusaders 4-3, but missed all their conversions, which resulted in a 24-20 loss. The Brumbies thrashed the Sunwolves meantime, 47-14.
Oh, gee, probably a mirror. Have a look in it. just individually review your own game, see what's going wrong. Collectively, look, we'll regroup on Monday. Rob's a pretty optimistic guy, as am I. But it's going to be a pretty great weekend for sure.
Melbourne Demons and Gold Coast had good pre-season wins overnight. The Demons looked in a good touch in a 32-point victory over Hawthorn. In a further good news for the club, captain Max Gawn successfully returned from a knee injury. New Demons signings Ed Langdon and Adam Tomlinson were two of Melbourne's best, racking up 57 disposals between them. In a further blow for Hawthorn, forward Mitch Lewis left the field with an ankle injury. Earlier, Jordan Murdoch scored 2 late goals as Gold Coast beat the Adelaide Crows by 7 points. Geelong have now won 2 straight matches in the AFLW competition. The Cats are still a chance of playing in the finals after they beat Gold Coast by 20 points. Geelong were behind by 6 at half-time, but kicked 4 unanswered goals in the second half to run out 38-18 winners. The Cats are now third in their conference with 3 rounds still to play. Nina Morrison was a standout for Geelong with 23 disposals and 8 tackles. The Cats play North Melbourne next week, while Gold Coast will take on West Coast.
Checking the satellite image, there is cloud cover over southern WA and across northern Australia, which is generating some showers and possible storms. The surface trough reducing that cloud cover stretches over Queensland, the Northern Territory and Western Australia and is drawing cool winds to the southeast. Looking around the country for today, Queensland can expect a few showers and storms over the east. Sunny conditions in the west. New South Wales and the ACT will see showers over the coast. It will be sunny inland with some cloud cover in the south. Cloudy in Victoria's southwest, stretching to the north with some late showers expected for the southeast. Tasmania can also expect a cloudy day, some sunshine expected in the northwest, easing showers in the southwest. Mainly fine in South Australia, some cloud cover over central areas. Western Australia will be mostly sunny, but it will be cloudy over the northeast. And for the top end, it will be sunny in central and southern parts of the Northern Territory. Showers and thunderstorms for the north. Now to the capital cities for tomorrow. Possible showers for Brisbane. Sydney and Canberra, mostly sunny. Sunshine also for Melbourne. Cloudy in Hobart. Sunny in Adelaide. Perth, partly cloudy, and possible thunderstorms for Darwin. That is the latest from ABC News. I'm Miriam Corowa. Thank you for your company.